Governments love to tell you they're working for your financial freedom. They talk about stability, growth, opportunity. But if you look closely at history, you'll see something much darker. Governments have always used hidden financial tricks to keep ordinary people broke while consolidating wealth and power for themselves. And the shocking part is, these tricks are not new. They've been recycled for centuries, wrapped in different packaging, but always with the same purpose: transfer wealth upward and keep the majority dependent. Let's start with the oldest and simplest trick of all: inflation. When a government spends more than it can raise through taxes, it has two options. It can admit the truth and tax its citizens openly, which is politically dangerous. Or it can quietly debase the currency, reducing the value of every coin and every note in circulation. Ancient Rome mastered this. In the 3rd century after Christ, emperors began reducing the silver content of a coin that was once nearly pure silver eventually became mostly copper with a thin silver wash. The empire pretended nothing had changed, but everyone holding those coins paid the price. Inflation skyrocketed, savings evaporated, and wages couldn't keep up. It was a silent tax on the population. Tricks still used today, just with central banks instead of imperial mints. The Middle Ages brought another version of this game: forced loans. Monarchs in England and France routinely leaned on wealthy merchants to lend money to the crown. Of course, these weren't voluntary. Refusal meant fines, or worse. Sometimes the crown promised repayment with interest, but repayment often came late in devalued currency, or never at all. The trick here was coercion disguised as patriotism, and it worked for centuries. By the 17th century, the financial system itself became the trick. When Britain created the Bank of England, it wasn't out of charity. The government needed money for wars. Wealthy investors bought government bonds, and in return, the crown guaranteed interest payments funded by taxes. This sounds like a fair deal, but think about who paid those taxes. Ordinary people, through duties on goods like salt and beer. The wealthy lent money and earned secure interest. The poor paid higher taxes to fund those interest payments. It was a wealth transfer system dressed up as national finance, and it cemented a pattern still alive today. The safest investments in the world are lending money to governments, and those returns are ultimately guaranteed by the labor of the masses. Fast forward to the modern world, and the tricks are everywhere. Take deficit spending. Governments run up massive debts, issuing bonds bought by investors and banks. Politicians tell the public it's for infrastructure or social programs, but much of it funnels into corporate subsidies and bailouts. When repayment time comes, governments don't cut spending at the top. They raise taxes, inflate the currency, or slash social benefits. The trick is that the debt looks like it's for the people, but the burden lands on their shoulders, while the profits go to the bondholders. And then there are bailouts. During the 2008 financial meltdown, banks took reckless bets and nearly collapsed the global economy. Who paid for it? Ordinary taxpayers through massive government bailouts. Who profited afterward? The very same banks, which emerged bigger than before. The trick was simple: privatize the gains, socialize the losses, and the public was told this was necessary to save the system. Even the way governments handle pensions is a sleight of hand. For decades, people have paid into government-managed systems, trusting the money would be there when they retired. But governments often don't save that money. They spend it immediately and leave IOUs in its place. The promise is that future taxpayers will cover the cost. It's essentially a generational Ponzi scheme. It works until demographics shift, and suddenly the system is unsustainable. Then the government reforms it by reducing benefits or raising the retirement age. Notice the pattern. The trick relies on perception. The public is told inflation is growth, forced loans are duty, national debt is investment, bailouts are stability, and pension cuts are reform. The language masks the reality, a transfer of wealth from the many to the few. In recent decades, the tricks have only become more sophisticated. Consider quantitative easing. Central banks created trillions of dollars out of thin air to stabilize markets. Politicians and bankers reassured the public this was necessary. And it worked for the financial system. Asset prices like stocks and real estate soared. But who owns most of those assets? The wealthy. For the average household, the benefits were minimal, while the downside came in the form of rising living costs. The trick here was that money creation saved the system for those at the top, while fueling inequality for everyone else. Another modern trick is stealth taxation. Instead of raising income taxes directly, governments quietly tax through sales taxes, fuel duties, and, most of all, inflation. When prices rise faster than wages, the gap is effectively a hidden tax on your savings and purchasing power. This is not a bug of the system, it is the system. Why does this matter now? Because the tricks are alive and accelerating. The lesson from history is not just that these tricks exist, but that they always return. Most people will never escape these tricks because they don't even realize they're being played. They take inflation as natural, taxes as inevitable, and bailouts as acts of mercy. Financial education is resistance. Economic history is a weapon. If you know the tricks, you are harder to manipulate. So, what should you take away? First, always look beyond the headline. When governments announce stimulus, ask who profits first. When inflation rises, remember it is not just bad luck. It is policy. Second, build real wealth outside the trap's assets that can hold value even when currency does not. Third, never assume the system works for you just because it says it does. The financial tricks that kept Roman citizens broke are the same ones draining your bank account today, only dressed in modern language. The only difference is whether you recognize them in time. If this gave you a new perspective, hit subscribe. History has the answers and I'll show you where to look.